Welcome to the final lesson of Python Bootcamp, Data Analysis for Beginners. Thank you so much for being with us, and also thank you so much for understanding and letting us to skip 1 week to get Demi fully recovered. Okay, so I will switch to Demi now, and then at the end I will get back to tell more about the capstone. Okay, Demi?
Yes. Okay. Hey all, thanks for being here again. Today is an exciting lesson. We are going to focus on a lot of topics that will enable you to do better analytics and also enable you to do analytics on your own with Pandas. We go straight to the screen now, so we walk through the agenda for today. And if you think it's going too fast, again, please raise it. It's going to be faster than we used to, I think, than the lessons before, because we have a lot to cover. But let's see how it goes. At the end, we don't have any assignments for this week anymore because we have the Capstone project. But at any point of time, you're welcome to ask questions to the mentors, obviously. Okay, so the agenda for today is we're going to learn how to combine datasets in Pandas. We are looking at subselects, assign, group by, lambda functions and the use of it, plotting, and numpy. First, the combination of datasets. Why is this important to do so? Often if you do data analytics, you get not only one CSV, separate value file, for example, you get multiple files, and you should be able to join them based on a specific ID or multiple IDs. There are 3 ways to merge or join the datasets in Pandas, which is merge, join, and concat. Merge is the most used to combine those datasets because it's more flexible. Also, merge is used basis on the value and the value of the common columns. So you can really select a few columns and merge them based on those columns. So for example, a patient ID, but as well a country. So there are 3 or 2 keys that make one unique row, let's say. Here is a little explanation for you what the differences are, and if you want to know a bit more about that, there is also a link on references here. Like I said, I'm going a bit faster, but for you, have a look at it, read what is in there, and if it's not clear, ask us. Here is the first example of joining a dataset. So first we're going to import Pandas. And then we're making use of the coronavirus dataset, patient info and patient root. If you see here how I read in the files, and it is a bad habit, what we done earlier to call your dataset df, like names that don't really make sense. You should not do that. It is a good habit to really give the dataset a name that means something. So for example, the info dataset and the root dataset. So I haven't tested it correctly. I believe my path is not correct. So if you run into this problem, let's see how we can fix this. So for example, I have the Bootcamp here, and it said that I should have my data set here within lesson, but the data set is not here. So I actually don't have it in this one. It's good that you're able to test my work on this. So I have to move the data set in the right directory. in order to do the analytics. It's waiting for upload. So what is very important here is if you see my tree, is that we don't
see it. We see only Jupyter Notebook. That's what all that we see.
Oh, okay. So let me share. Then I have to reshare my screen again.
Yes, you need to reshare your screen again.
Okay.
Okay, we're here. We're waiting for a screen.
That should be it.
Okay, we do hope. This is Jupyter Notebook.
Okay. I was just debugging why I could not find my data set.
Okay.
And I was doing.
Oh, now I see. Now we see the screen. Just a second. Yeah.
So, and I was doing that with my terminal. It's a bit small.
Small. Yeah, it's really small. It's invisible almost.
Okay, I will just explain briefly. The error that we saw here on the Jupyter Notebook is saying no file found error. That means that my path is not correct. So here the path root does not exist. That is what my error says here. The file does not exist. That means that my computer cannot find the file. So what it did, I went back looking in my folder, so in my directories here, and see, is the file really not there? Did I have the wrong string here, so the wrong path? And I indeed had. So the coronavirus set was not in the right directory. Now it is, so it should be okay now, which it is. So I can print the above. So the first data set, for example, and to explore we call hat, like we saw in the other lesson. So for example, this is how our first data set looks like. It has a patient ID, a global number, sex, birthday, and all few things that will tell you a bit more about a patient ID. Then we also have the info button, which will show you more information about your data set. So the info button is really useful to explore your data set on high level. You will find the data type here, and especially the non-values, which we saw in last week. So for example, here we have 18 non-values, and in these ones we have more than a lot. So here, for example, in disease, there are not a lot of people disease, or a lot of patient IDs, let's say. So these, you can see that this will not be good variables to do analytics on, because they have a lot of non-values. We kind of do the same thing for root, and then you see what root contains and how you can work with it. Once we want to join those two data sets, we have multiple ways to join them, but it is common, like we said earlier, to do a merge. So we call out one data set, and then we merge that onto the other one. And we do that on specific column IDs. So you can do that on one column, but you can do it also on multiple columns, which we see here. We join on or merge on patient ID, city, and province. Once we merged it, we check the columns to see, okay, what is now in our data set. I've called the merge data set merged. We check the shape. It has now 23 columns and so many rows. We want to drop the duplicates because, yeah, if the row is the same as the above, your data is maybe getting messed up or is not so useful to use anymore. If you want to do training, for example, if you want to make a data science model, duplicates are not really useful. They only mess up with your data. So once we've done that, we drop the duplicates. You see the shape changed. And we lost about 300 rows. Then we go to subselect and the transformations you can do on your data set. If you're exploring a data set, it is likely that you want to only see specific rows within that data set. Think about, I only want to see all the males in a data set, or I want to see only the people that have, what do we have else? Live in province, I don't know, what kind of provinces are there, or in one specific city. So if we want to do that, we want to use log and ilog. And log is useful to see the location, and ilog is useful if you want to see the index. Why would you use log instead of just selecting it like we did in the last lesson? So log is actually useful if you want to do changes later on in your data set. So you make a copy of that, and you can of that data set, and you can go further and making analytics on that new data set instead of transforming the old data set. Yeah, so if you, after you did a subselection, want to use that subselection in order to do more analytics on that subselection, then use always log. Here is a nice picture to go over it for yourself again to understand the differences between log and ilog. But yeah, ilog is selection position based, and log is more on the column that you want to use, not specifically on the index. Here we have some examples of the single selection that you can do within the data frame. So for example, here you want to first only select the first row. And like we saw earlier, this is the second, this is the last one. And if that is about rows, and if you want to try this for a specific column in your data frame, you have to use this way. So these are kind of ways for you to play around with it if you want to select columns or rows. Not only like selecting is very important, but also conditional selection. So like we said before, a country or a city is equal to a specific number. So for example, I only want to have the countries, the rows in my data set that are equal to the country Korea. And for example, I only want to have the column sex and province, or up till province. That is how you do it with this. So you call out the data set, then you put log there, you select the column of the data set, and then you make your statement, so your condition, in this case, needs to be equal to Korea, and I only want to select the sex up till province. If you leave this out, this last part, I have to first run everything, otherwise my code will not work. I here get a copy of that data frame with only the country Korea. I can also do, for example, not equal to Korea. It's you select a Boolean here. If I do this, I get only those columns in here. So this is the second part of the selection. What you can see here, the green one, and up to here, this is your new data set that you're actually, the sub-selection that you're doing. So this is the column. Oh, cannot really. This is the column that you have here. This is the data set. Remember, this should work too. Because it's the same. You can also do this with dates, and here the date is a string. So for example, I want to see only a subselection of my data in which the release date is bigger than the 1st of January from this year. Then you get the copy of that. There are a few examples here for you to test around with, because all of this is based on Boolean selection. Here we have, for example, a Boolean selection that we want to see, okay, give me the country, so that ends with AA. And this dot string, you have seen that maybe before, but it's very important to let your function know here that it is a string that you do the function ends with on. So this is just a function and ends with, and you give them an argument AA. So the argument of the function ends with is AA. So I can change this to everything. Maybe I want to see a country that ends with an I, or I want to see a city that ends with an I. But it's very important to say to this function, the ends with function, that we're talking about a string. That's something that Pandas requires because it does row-based lookup, and it needs to know that then. Okay, so I can see that here, the city that ends with an E. Okay, that's this whole data set. So many rows. And if I want to find how many rows there are in this data set, I can easily do can easily do, for example, length or shape. Here, you can put as many as function transformation in a row as you want. Like, for example, here, we are going to look in our data set to the column country, and we want to do a string dot lower. So we are only looking at the country if it is lower. So here you can see that Korea is with a capital K. And for it to be consistent or to not make mistakes, it's always good to do lower or upper if you compare strings with each other. If you need to make sure that those strings are equally the same, and it's also always a good habit to lower them, for example. And what you can see here is that we do another function after a function. So you put functions after each other. So we do first is we look in the list or the column merged country, which is country. Then we make the string lower. So we lower the Korea for every row. So we lower the country for every row. And then we look if the country name, so this name, is in this list. So it's equal to something in that list. You can make the list as long as you want. And this is just if you want to compare multiple options. So you have either this, or you have, for example, this. So then we have only something that is equal to Korea. And in this option, we look at multiple things. So here, it can be equal to more countries. Okay. Then we have a select with multiple conditions. So you either want to do a look only in a data set of males, but all those males should live in Korea and the age should be higher than 50. That's it. Something like that can happen. It can be a question. So what you need to do then, you need to do selections, select and another select and another select on that data set. So what we do there is we just stick them behind each other. So for example, we want to have a city that ends with SE, and we want to have the infection case that is equal to overseas in flow. How you do that is really simple, actually. You just make sure that condition 1, so within the select, so this is your select basically. This is how the select looks like. And then here you find the column. So for example, merged city, on which you want to do the equal to. And it is important that if you have multiple selections, that you do brackets under them and use the and sign. So for example, is equal to Korea. And then we close this one. And we want to have something, the selection merge city, let's say province, and sex is male. So then you have your selection. There's apparently no male in Korea. That's weird, but could be. And then you have your selection there. For example, this one, the string set ends with C, and the infection case is overseas in flow. You can do that here too. Let's say do this. Then we get this data frame. Now we have multiple selections here behind each other, and we only want to have certain columns from that selection. So you do exactly the same what you did above. So you merge that column. Don't forget, get this bracket. So this is your first condition, like you see here. So if you would do this, and this is not counted, this will work too, right? So this is then only one selection option. But now we are including an extra selection option. And that is the merge patients ID from here up till here. And we only want to select a few columns, so the city and the country column. What I sometimes also do is not this. So you have this one. Wait. First go to this and then explain you that. So if you like to create a new object and want to work with that afterwards, you need to assign a new variable, like we did with other variables before. So for example, I'm looking here at the selection of people that are, or patient cases that are older than 1990. Okay, you're not that old then, but we call it older. And then you see like, hey, I have a new data, new object, a new Pandas data frame that is called older. If I want to use that one, so older, for example, I want to select only the city and the country from that one. I sometimes do this. So double brackets. And what you can see here is it's actually the same thing as this one here, where you just had your subselect and put the columns behind it. It is separated between a column. So basically this function that you have lock, the lock function has two arguments, which is the conditional select, so the condition, and the columns that you want to select. Those are two arguments for the function lock. I hope that makes sense. So here. It's really good to look at the documentation sometimes and see really like, okay, so I put this function on my data frame and the function is lock, and the arguments in that function are the condition and the columns that I want to have. So then it also makes sense that if I do this is a subselection, but I forget everything. So I actually mean I want a subselection of these columns, but from everything. So normally you would do this, for example, but also Pandas works like this. So you would get the, oh, I need to do, never mind, this works, but so then you have your selection of everything. Then we come to an exercise. So create your own data frame that consists only of these column sex with the value that is equal to females. So go ahead. We wait a minute for you, and then we go on.
We are already home.
And then we go home.
You say we go home and say
no,
we're already home. Oh.
Okay. We have a lot to cover, so we are not waiting too long for the assignments. But if you have questions, if you're not able to finalize them, ask them please in the Bootcamp Slack, because people are there for you to help you. It's very important that you get this selection topic, because it's very often used in if you do data analytics. Okay. Then we go on to the creation of new columns, and we start with a bad habit. So this you can use if you know how to use it. So you call out, okay, this is the new column that I want to use. I use the data frame, and then I give it a new name. This is what you often see in a lot of notebooks. So for example, I do basic math calculation here. I merge the, I get the birthday year and I do it +1. And after that, I divide it by 2 because I want the average from those two. So once I do that, it will get me an extra column in my data set. See? And I think, oh, that's very nice. It is very nice. But if a data frame does not have continuous indices, for example, because you did a subselect, sometimes if you use this practice above here, then you will end up with some empty cells. And therefore, it's better habit to use assign. You don't know, always need it, but it's a really good habit. But if you don't use it, you have to use reset index before you add a new column. So keep that in mind. It's always useful to reset your index before you go on to do the new analysis, or you have to do it in a really good way, with, for example, with assign. In here, I make a new, I override my data frame and I assign a new column. So assign is a function, like lock is a function, and the function takes as argument the new name for the new column and the calculation that you made before. Just take a moment to take this in, because it's just you assign a new column to your data frame and the name of your new column is here. And then this is explained what the new column needs to do. Okay. Another exercise here, and that is create an extra column which contains the day of the week instead of the release date. So you can call this name the column of the day of the week. So here, think about using assign and use the pd.datetime. This is a very useful exercise, because you learn how to work with Pandas to datetime. And to datetime is often used to translate a string into a time object, a datetime object. And this is important because the datetime object is internally used in Python, but also for Pandas to do calculations with it. So for example, you want to see the differences between how much the difference is between two dates, then you can do simple calculations there. And in this way, you can also make a subselection just only, I want to see only the month, I want only to see the year from that datetime object. So translating a string into a datetime object, that is what pd.toDatetime does. Try it yourself to add an extra column, day of the week. Look here how you assign a column. So merge.assign, you give it an extra name. You call it day of the week. And then toDatetime is also a function, so we need to know which row we need to change to a datetime object, which is in this case the release date. I think it is here. So merge.release date. So then it is changed to a datetime object. And now we only want to see day of week. And I'm actually not sure what the name here is. The name, I think. Release dates. We don't have a release date column. We have a date column. Released date. I forgot the date. That's why I always copy paste it. The week. Okay, so in this case, I forgot what the exact way of doing this is. So what I then do is Google Pandas to datetime. And then you can find the documentation. This is the correct one, but I want to change it to, what did we say? Day of week. Weekday, it says. dt.weekday function.
Yeah, and you said .dt.week.
Yeah, exactly. So it is nice to see here in Stack Overflow what then the possibilities are to do it. And like you can see here, maybe I have to increase my screen. So,
yeah, and there is as well request when you will get back to the Jupyter notebook to make it wider so that the people can see more of the notebook as well.
Okay, yeah. So here it is good to see what we're doing here in Pandas. So for example, we did this too. We created an extra frame, and then we need to do the dot name. So I forgot the first time, I forgot the brackets. See? And we go back to the Jupyter notebook that we have. So it's bigger.
Awesome, thanks.
Here. So what did we forget? I think we forgot to do this, right? No, so we forgot an extra bracket. Design that parts. That is weird. Okay, the reason why it's not working is because it is not a datetime yet, and then I really already want to transform it directly, which is not working in this case. Let me check if this works. Okay, badly prepared for me. The reason why it's not working is because now oh. This way. I'm not so sure what I'm doing.
Can you first just just convert it to datetime and then perform the operation to get a datetime element?
That's what I was doing, only the problem is that I did this before and then it worked, so I don't know why it's not working. So yeah, this happens and you'll get frustrated why it's not working, and you'll try to find out why, but sometimes you just get stuck. And it's very helpful to just look at what people are doing here. So why is this working here is because they first translate it into a datetime object, and then after they translate it back again to only the week name. So for example, we have to change this into day of the week. I will come back to this. Let's move on because this is weird. Should work. Maybe it's a different name. So now you can see here it's day of the week, and this is the numbers of the day of the week. But it also needs to have a name. So then you find the DT function, which calls the function weekday. And it should also have week name or something, but I'm not sure what the correct one is here. They say weekday name, but it doesn't work with us. So don't know why it's not works.
Use help function to show the what's available.
It's also a good idea. Yeah, you can also use a help function. I'm mostly just always Googling myself. I'm not sure how often do you use the help function? I don't know.
I rarely works with Jupyter Notebook, so I know how to do it not in Jupyter Notebook.
Yeah, exactly. So we'll come back on this one. Because when I was preparing this, I just typed it out and now it's going wrong. You have those days, I guess.
Okay, we just got the help of the auditorium. So really good point. So the first one was don't we have to assign it first?
Yes, we do. So this is so you actually the mistake you make if you do this is that you don't make an exact copy of this, and you can better do an assign function. So it says it gives me still the same error, but okay, so now it's assigned to the data frame. And you could do the same thing then here if you want.
Okay, so I got it working by using this statement, merged.assign. Then you open in the parentheses or brackets, and it say day of week, assign or equal PD to datetime, then you open the parentheses again, then merged on square brackets release date, then you close the square brackets, you close the parentheses, dot dt dot day name. Oh, using day name.
Day name, okay. But at my side,
day name. Wait a second. Day and then yes.
I know for sure this should work, but it doesn't for some reason. So I think we should just move on.
Oh, wait a second. If you don't save it to the merged, if you just start with merged assign.
No, it's not really. This, I have to be honest with you that I don't know at this moment why it's not working. Sometimes you overwrite something on accident, and then a function is not working anymore. Hurry. Yeah, this should be correct. Okay, sorry people, we'll move on. Sorry, thank you for your patience, and we'll let you know the correct way of doing this with an explanation later. Okay, let's move on to a lambda function and apply. And just to make you maybe a bit more comfortable, like I've been doing translations until from strings to datetime objects and back and forth and selections. And it will cost you some time to get the hang out of it. And you see after 2 years of working with a Python notebook, it still doesn't go like very smooth. Although when I was creating this one, it was. So sometimes it's just not your day. Have a walk and yeah, come back to it. And it's a very good habit to do as well. Okay, lambda functions. Lambda functions you use if you want to have a column that, or sum a column of different columns, and you can basically do that in one row. But sometimes you need to build more complex functions. And what you want to achieve here is that on a specific row, you want to do a calculation. And you don't want to have like, okay, this column needs to be equal to China, for example, for the country. No, you want to say if the person is 30, below 30, you want to assign a specific value to the extra column that you assign to your data frame. So on a row basis, you will add an extra column, and every row needs to be evaluated with a function, and that is what you do with apply. And if the function is basically very easy, you can put it in one line, you can use an lambda function for it. And what that does, it looks at the row, and everything in that row, you call it X or I, for example, and you apply that function on. So here we have an example. Let's say you want to build a health score, so add an extra column health score based on different kind of factors. If a person is below 30, you want to give this person a high health score, so a 10. But you only want to give that to that person if the country where the patient ID is equal to China, and so on. You can come up with different if-else statements. So what you want to do then is create your function like we saw that before. So if the patient row is equal to or bigger or whatever you came up with to a specific thing, you return the amount that you want to put in that column for that specific row. So what you do with this type of behavior, you create an extra column, which we call health score, which we do here. And here is a good habit to also just use assign, or you do a reset of the index before. What you then do, you take your data frame, you apply the function, and the function is called the custom health score. Should find here. It has 2 arguments, so 2 columns. And the X stands for the specific row that you're looking at. So lambda X is looking at this row of this column. And XSI is saying that you look a row-based term. So then it evaluates every row in your data set based on your function. And if the statement is true, it will return 10 here. If this statement is true, it will return 8 and else 5. So if we now look at merged health score, or just merged, you see that all rows got a score. And like we said earlier before, it is a bad habit to do it this way because, well, here it's not because the index are still sorted. That's why we could use it. But later on, if you did a subselection earlier, you want to use assign. What I'm often also doing is, okay, I create this new column with the subselection. I give that a new variable name so that I have a new data frame name, and then I will go on with this because we have sorted indexes. Lambda is maybe not very easy to grasp as soon as you start programming, but it is a very useful function. You will use it with a lot of one-liners that you want to do. But it's very good to remind that apply and lambda are most of the time used in the same row. If you don't use lambda, you have to specify a function. So here you see we use lambda, and it's kind of the same as calling that function. So we apply the function on this condition on the row, and that row we specify with the lambda function. This is important to keep in mind, that you want to look up the x and then compare the x. Yeah, and this is your total example fun here. You're going to look up the indexes, and I only want to have the columns back. This is your one-liner there. I hope it's a bit clear. So maybe we go for a short break. Is that an idea?
Yeah. 3-5 minutes.
Yeah, let's do 3 minutes.
Okay.
People can 5 minutes and then take that 5 minutes for a break, or either let's sink in lambda in and the apply function a bit further, because it can be tricky to use it.
Yeah, and regarding this thing with daytime with exercise, so we posted the answer in the Q&A.
Okay.
Yeah. So there it's missing, or it's missing something where, so we'll check it later, but we posted the answer.
Cool. This doesn't work. Okay.
Sorry. In the meantime, we got a question. Can you please explain log and ilog difference once more for the bows?
Of course.
Yeah, it has a really nice picture.
Yeah.
Okay.
So it is really the difference based on if you want to select indexes, so row-based or column-based, let's say. So log is more looking at if you want to select a specific column. And ilog is focused on the indexes, so more on the specific row or the specific data value that you want to have in there. And yeah, if you look at this this picture, it also shows you that it's kind of the same how you would do it, but it looks at the index there. So if you want to filter the data frames, it is kind of easier to filter based on a specific column. It is easier to use the log because you're looking at only the specific specific column in your data frame. And if you want to look at, for example, what is the 50th value in your data frame, then you use ilog. And ilog is also useful if you want to look at what is the second column in my data frame. So then you use ilog on columns. So it's really numbers or let's say letters.
Thanks.
Okay. So after selections and being able to do using apply, so adding an extra column to your data frame with assign, or with apply if you add an extra column based on specific conditions, you want to fill that column. Group by is a really useful function as well. Group by, if you're familiar with SQL, it is the same. It actually does pretty much the same. It does the same. And why group by is very important is that you want to ask yourself sometimes questions. Okay, based on a specific city, or how many how many patient IDs do I have per city? How many females are there in a specific city? So you really want to look at a specific part and, for example, do there a calculation on, so a summation or an average, but then for every city or then for every country. So here, for example, how many distinct patient IDs do we have for each city? And why is distant important if you're familiar with SQL? Otherwise, you just count the rows. And now we ask for how many different patient IDs are there. Because we merged two data sets, we merged the root and also the information. One specific patient ID took multiple roots. So we have multiple patient IDs in our data frame. That's why we actually only want to count the patient ID once and not multiple times. So how easy basically group by looks like is it's again a function. And I want to group by and I give that function the argument city. So where do I want to group by on? On city. What do I want to? This is actually your only part of it. But after the group by, you don't just group by to put those things together. You always want to do something with it. So, for example, count the patient ID, or make a sum of the patient ID, or do an average of the patient ID, or I don't know, something else that you want to count. And then you have to select. So this is, again, the brackets are for select. Like we did earlier, the selection of the data frames were also in brackets. And then we select the patient ID and we perform a function on that one, which is count. So once again, we group by, and then we always want to do group by something, like because of a reason. You just not group by without reason, right? So then you can, for example, group by the number of cities. And I think that the sort value, we saw that before, that's actually the same function as the group by. If we take a city. Here, this is the same thing, like the value count is basically the same thing as the group by that we saw before. Only this is not sorted. So if you want to sort this one, you get the same thing if you use value counts. You can pass one column that you want to group by, or you can do multiple columns. That's just actually the same thing, but then you just pass a list that you want to group by on. And how that works is the function is first looking at the city and then to the sex. So it first goes to takes all the cities together, and then after it takes the females together. If you do that way around, it's also possible. It just will give you different results. So it first goes to female and then does this. So let us see if it gives indeed different results if we change it. So here you can find that the group by doesn't really matter, but there are cases which you can think of when this group by is turning out differently. Here we gave a health score before, and we group by the country to see what the health score was. So, for example, we see per country what the average is, the mean, of the health score per country. Or I can do city. Or sex. Or even country, and then sex. Canada females have a high health score. What we just add here is sort values. Sort values make sure that the data frame is sorted in a way. So it's always on default ascending. If you want to have it descending, you just do, I believe it's ascending. Ascending false. And then it turns around. If I do true, so I give the function sort values, I give that an argument, which is ascending, and I set it to true. Once again, here you do the mean, or we could do sum. And then it just counts how often the city comes in that specific data frame, and then it sums all the health scores. Also do per city the minimum of the health score, whatever function you like to use. It's really handy. Then we go to plotting. Often you use plots to visualize your data and to make this available to your company or your colleague, anybody that wants to see your data analytics. There are two basic libraries that are very useful: Seabourn and Matplotlib. Matplotlib is a bit bigger, more extensive, and Seabourn was called into life because to make things easier as a one-liner. This is we did this before. We need to install Seabourn and install Matplotlib before we can use it. So this is the way on how to install it in your Jupyter notebook. I do not have to install it anymore because I already had it, but for you, this is the correct way to install it. Before you're going to use Matplotlib, always use this line before you're going to use it. It's making sure that it shows the graphs, basically. If you end up with doing this, then often you can get an error saying I could not find I cannot show the plot, or it doesn't show the plot correctly. So always use Matplotlib inline. It shows it inline in your Jupyter notebook. Okay. Why we needed groupby is because groupby actually is the way how you want to visualize things most of the time. So can you visualize how much patient IDs we have for female or for male? So then we use groupby and we did a count here. And basically that is the input for your plot. And if you want to plot something with Matplotlib, you just call plot.bar, and then it makes a bar plot. Or pie works too. I think bar also something works like this. You can play around with that and then make really easy plottings here. It's very the documentation of Matplotlib can be a bit tricky, so don't get lost and try to really understand what you're doing here, and just make sure that you get what you're doing. So, for example, I'm just grouping by. I give that to a variable, the data frame, group this one, and then I only can have to plot this data frame again. It's not very convenient if you ask me, but there are two ways to actually do plottings in Matplotlib. And one of the reasons why they have that is because you want to directly show the plots, or you want to do something with it. You want to, for example, do two plots next to each other. So you have in one figure, you could have 4 plots, for example, or a plot with a line inside of it. You want to change the names from the plot. You want to change the names from the X and Y axis. So that's why they call this way of doing this in your life. So this is to make to show the plot if you just want to make one picture out of something. So for example, the gender data frame, you plot a bar. Always show the plot if you want to show the plot to your screen. It's the same kind of what you do with print. And if you want to do more, or you want to have more graphs in one figure, or you want to change more things in that plot, it is very useful to use a tuple for that, and to create a figure with more subplots inside of it. So what you then do is I create a figure with the axis and I initialize my plots there, or my figure. This is the way to do that, actually. So then you will find this way on the internet, and this is the easy plotting way. But in this way, you can use multiple things to extend your plotting. And also at the end of this notebook, we'll redirect you to our advanced plotting, or like we have another notebook for you that is going deeper in plotting with Seabourn and Matplotlib. So you can really explore that yourself, and from there on dive a bit more into Matplotlib. It's very nice, notebook, and we don't have that much time to handle it here, but I really recommend you to look into that. Then we go to Seabourn. We do exactly the same thing, install it again. And after installment, you import the library. And what we did here, we renamed the library. So Seabourn, we imported as SNS, and then we can use the library with all the functions inside of it. So cutplot is, for example, the plot that you see here. Sorry, this is a category plot. That's the function category plot with the kind of plot, which is the box plot. And before you're going to use Seabourn, just go to the documentation of Seabourn, type in Seabourn documentation and you'll find it. And then you can find different kinds of plots that we have. So what we did with the groupby before, that is actually the category plot in Seabourn. So we find it important that on the x-as we define sexes, and on the y-as we define birth. So you find here the birth year and the sexes, and then you can make a box plot from it. And the data that you use is our data frame, the merge data frame. And you don't really have to import it anymore into a variable. No, it's already used. You can already use it like this. So you can use the entire data frame. You specifically say what kind of plots you want. You can do all kinds of different plots here, like we did before. Now it doesn't really make sense to have that. But for example, so it works the same way with, I'm not using Matplotlib that, sorry, Seabourn that much, I see. But you have all different kinds of cut plots and also regular plots. So just go to the documentation, so Seabourn documentation, because if you visualize your data histograms, for example, it's very useful for a statistician among us. You find tutorials here, and they will show you from different kinds of plots how you should use them. It's very useful, so recommended to look at it. Then we go on to Numpy, and I hope you have some space in your brain left, because Numpy is a very must if you want to go into data science or speed up your code, your Python code, or your Pandas code, let's say, also Python code. But if you do a lot of calculations based on matrices or vectors, Numpy is just the way to go. And it's mostly used to analyze big data and really speeds up your project. Also, for example, a lot of libraries are built on top of Numpy because of the speed and the built-in functions. The most important thing to know is the Numpy object in the object in Numpy is an ND array, and that is, it stands for number dimensional. The N stands for 1, 2, 3, 4 dimensional array. So multi-dimensional array, for example, can be a 2-dimensional array, and that means like a matrix.
A quick question: how is it different from list?
What is different from list?
Array.
Yeah, that's a good question. I think we handle it here below.
Oh, okay. So if you have, yeah, then let's wait. Yeah, let's wait to it. Yeah.
Yeah, because it's a good question. Install a Numpy again and import it as MP. So here you can find the way how to use Numpy with an array. And what you see, you actually specify the array as a list here. And in a multi-dimensional array, you use this way to put that in, so a tuple inside of a list. So this is a 1-dimensional array, and this is a 2-dimensional array. So a matrix. And it's kind of the same way used, only that you use tuples inside of that list there. Here it's also really important to see that the number of columns should be equal, otherwise Numpy creates an array of a list. So you can find the difference in there as well. So if it's not the same, if an array really needs to be the same if you have a multi-dimensional, want to create a multi-dimensional object, because otherwise Python will create, or Numpy will create a list inside of it, because it always, for arrays, always need to be the same length in there. So to come back, I thought that we would handle it, but this already is kind of an introduction in that. But to give you a better example on what the differences are, so it really has to do with speed, and the list can so then 1-dimensional array can be kind of the same, but the list is sorted, and the array is also sorted, only that if you want to go to the multi-dimensional array, you are bounded onto that it has to have the same length. Maybe I don't have something to add on what the differences are.
Yeah, I think the most important thing is, so list can contain different types of data. So in one list we can have float, integer, string, whatever. And because it's flexible, we pay for speed in this case. Array has only one type of data. So we can have array that have like a float, an integer, and a string in it. It should be separate. That's why we get speed here. And actually, for those who will be interested in the future to pursue the career of software developer in Python or machine learning engineer, Numpy is #1, because you will actually optimize Pandas code. You will rewrite a lot of Pandas code into Numpy code to get it more, to speed up it, actually.
Yeah, so it's a really good explanation. So the differences are that you only can have one data type in an array, and that's very important. Yeah, then Numpy on default creates floats. So yeah, you can see that. The .zeros function is very often used in data science, which is why we show it here. If you can proceed with learning more about matplotlib and visualization, you will find this block of text as well in the other notebook. I will share it afterwards with you. It's down this notebook. But you can see here what you can do with Numpy, and also a bit of plotting here. So here we create an array of a range, with the function linspace. And with that will be the x, and the I will be the sinus of x then. And then you can plot this figure. So we define a figure in here. We create the axis, and then we'll make a plot out of x and I. In here you can see that this is our first argument. This is the range that we're defining, and the range is between these values up until 100. That was it. Went a bit quicker than expected. If there are still questions, we are really happy to answer them here. And otherwise, please go on to the recommended reading, because we handled a few really tough topics, which is lambda and apply. I really recommend to look at binning and cut. These functions are very often used as well in your analytics, and groupby is something you probably use very often as well. So go have a look onto these URLs and find those websites and learn more about those topics. Then, if you want to go further with visualization, we have another bootcamp for you waiting, or it's not a bootcamp, it's like 1 day workshop. So within 1.5 hours, you find yourself more comfortable with visualization if you go to this link. It is our GitHub page again, so you can be cloning this, and then you will work with Seabourn, Pandas, and Matplotlib again. It's very recommended. It is made by a professor of a university, and she was colorblind, which is a lot of nice findings in there as well. So visualizations for colorblind are obviously differently done. So it's a very recommended workshop. And if you want to proceed and go further with Pandas and learn a bit more about apply and optimizing your code, or work a bit more with data types, that this workshop is also very recommended. It is created by 2 data scientists of Crew Blue, so very much recommended as well. And then if you want to become better in NumPy, understand why you need to use NumPy, there's another link for you there. Oh, see, I put the exercise solutions below here. Yeah. So if you want to go over them, you'll find it. And I give the word to Ilona here.
That's okay, thanks. I also want to briefly recap and just to explain the difference between the, briefly, why do you need lambdas, why do you need functions, when to use what? Really, really like stupid, simple thing. If you want to write the same code again and again and again and again, don't use lambdas, don't use functions. If you feel that you want to do something and somehow you can create a function from it, okay, not to write the same code again and again and again, you can create lambda function only if you intend to use it once for this code. You don't want to write a lot of lines of code, but just replace with something easy. But you don't expect to reuse this function in the future. You will use lambda in this case. On top of it, there are some Python functions that are really created to be used with something like lambda. We'll not cover this function in our bootcamp, but we as well will share resources where to find them. And then if you really want not to write your code again and again and again and again, and you want to reuse this, you can create a function. So maybe it's a little bit simple, but yeah. In the meantime, I saw the question, will these resources stay available in the coming time? So all these resources are available unlimited. Yeah, so our GitHub repository is open, so please visit it, try different workshops. All workshops has explanations and solutions. Video recorded, uploaded on YouTube, so it's as well accessible. Yeah, so I think that's it for it. So now it's time to move to the capstone part and to call the goddess of Python, I think. Okay. Yeah, can you just make it, Demi? Now I'm sharing your screen still. Can you open just Capstone folder in our Bootcamp?
Yeah. Sorry, I can also do it obviously here. It makes maybe more sense to people.
Okay.
Maybe.
Maybe not.
You find it there as well. Markdown. MD stands for Markdown. It's a different kind of file. And it's used to make GitHub different kind of ways you can use it. But for example, it is used within this website to show the Markdown very nicely. So here on the GitHub repository, you will find the explanation about the capstone assignment.
Yeah, but we go through it. I just got the question. Could you also shortly explain the capstone exercise? Sure, we'll explain right now. In the meantime, Demi, please think about this question. Any tips, advice, how to go onwards from here? From the theory you provided, what would you recommend to hone your skills? I think it's a long question. I just copied it for you. So think about it.
Like one thing is do the capstone assignment.
Yes, I think it's pretty important.
It is just go on and go grab a data set. Ask your employer for a data set, for example. Ask a friend or go on Kaggle for a data set. Write down questions and try to answer them.
Yeah, I think this is the most important one. But as we mentioned, we'll try to experiment and do some magic at the end of this lesson. So first, brief explanation about the capstone. What is expected from you? What is in it? What's included? First, congratulations. You made so far. It's awesome. So you finish this theoretical part. You do some exercises. Yes, I also can give short round of applause to it. So now it's your time to put all that you learned into action. In the real life, we are working not alone. So usually if you work for a company, you get some task, you assign for some task and somebody else is assigned for this task again, and you get a group of people and you need to do something together. So this is where the team comes in place. So the first requirement is a team. Soon you will know how the team will be splitted. There were different options how to do it, but we decided to ask Python, God of randomness, to help us with this. So we'll show it. So the first thing, in 10 minutes or less, everybody will know to which team he or she belongs to. I highly encourage you we publish it on Slack channel as well to be visible who belongs to what kind of team. We highly advise you to contact your team members via Slack. In highly unlikely case, if the person whom you try to contact is not responded within 72 hours, please send a direct message to me, to Elena Galev on Slack, and we will try to contact this person in different way or rearrange. So we'll see. And then I think this is, and it's up to you to decide how you will collaborate, how you will split tasks. So it's up to you to decide what to do. The obligatory requirements is to use two libraries. It's Pandas, because you learn Pandas, and a little bit of Matplotlib. So go wild, try basic graphs, plots. We don't ask you to create something really sophisticated, something simple that help you to answer the questions. And optional, if you have time and desire, use Seabourn and Numpy as well. But Pandas, this is 99% must have, and Matplotlib, let's say 1%, let's have it there, and then optional. For the capstone task, as Demi mentioned, search a data set at the internet. The major requirement that the data set should have at least 2 CSV files. Why at least 2? It can be 2, 3 more. For example, our COVID data set has approximately like 8 or 10 files. I don't remember exactly the number, something like this. Why? Because in real life, you will be handled over with different files, and the chances are really high that you need somehow to merge, join, concat them. So that's where the exercises, this is your real life exercise for the week number 4. So where to look for data sets? Internet, Kaggle. There is a Google datasets as well. So the link to Google datasets is published. So just go there, search there, come up with, you can have a lot of questions, as much as you want, but we require at least 5 major questions. What do you want to answer while you're exploring this data set? Then you should create one GitHub repository. What do you mean by one? So if we have team with 5, 6, 7 people, you don't need to create 5 or 6 or 7 repositories. You just need to have one per project, but it's up to you to decide how. But we require at least one GitHub repository for a project. Then you created this repository, you download your data set, and you start your journey on explorations of the data. And then this is your time to shine. Surprise, surprise. I just got a question. Are we going to do presentations next Wednesday? Yes. So you need to prepare a 5-minute presentation about your team findings and be ready to present it online. So we will have one person presenting from the team. So decide who will be presenting. By presenting, we mean share your screen and telling your story and showing maybe some nice visualization, or just telling us the story that you learn with your data. And as well, these presentation slides, it can be PowerPoints or Mac presentation format, it's up to you. They should be added to your GitHub repo. And when you're done, celebrate. And also, if you want to get a certificate, we need your name and surname if you want to get it not issued for the person that doesn't exist. So don't forget to send your name and surname for the certificate in the direct message to me on Slack. So all this information is written down. So this is, and now it's time to switch to my screen, to share my screen. And just a second. Wait, okay. Team. Okay. Okay. So it should be this one. Yes. So it looks like this one. So as I mentioned before, we created the script to randomly split the participants. So we have the list of 98 participants. This is our final list. Some people decided not to pursue further with Capstone. So 98 participants. And for now, what we'll be actually doing, the script just reads the names and surnames, or just names of the participants of this Capstone, then shuffle randomly. So this is really important library. It calls import random. You also will work with it a lot. It just allows you to shuffle randomly your list or your data, what you need. So for now, first I want to show you that it's real, that we are not cheating, that we are not predefined in splitted groups before. So I will just run script and, for example, define, this is not the end result, just to show you how it works. So I run the script and say, split the participants into teams with 10 person in each team, just to show you. And it returns, you see some numbers, some names. If I run it again, it returns a little bit different combination. If I run it again, it returns a little bit different combination. Because there are 98 people, we decided to split in teams with 7 people. So fingers crossed, I don't know, like drums, table. So we are doing the split right now. Okay, so this is the final results, and I will just copy this results as it is and immediately pass this results to the, wait a second, and pass this results to the Slack. So I don't want to lose it. Wait a second, please.
You can also put it here in the QA, right? In the thread, so people can.
Yes, okay. I publish it for a second on Slack and then here, and I put it here. Okay. Okay. So Demi, where do you want me to put it as well? So I put it on Slack. Where do you want to put it?
Yeah, I think you can also put it here in Teams, right? So
I will try. I don't know whether the amount. Let's check. Yes.
It's a good idea that we create team 1, 2, 3 up to high in the PyLadies group, in the Slack group, so people can communicate there.
You mean create separate channels, or?
Yeah.
Separate. Let me check regarding creation of separate channels. And anyway, we'll communicate with you. So now we have 14 teams. So how to read it? You have the number. Oh, sorry, I just missed part of it. So you have the number of the team, and then you have the participants. What I noticed, we have 2 people with the same names. We have 2 Daniela and 2, if I pronounce it correctly, Eliane, or then just look for your surname, because that's the information that we got from your application forms. Okay, I see the questions incoming. So the question is, roughly how much time do you think this exercise would cost, given you're a noob, taking into account Monday's national holiday, so you can plan how much time is needed? First, remember that you're working not alone. So now you have a team. So it's up to you to decide, or to split tasks and say one person will be trying to do visualization, another person will be trying to do this. It's up to you to decide how. How much time? Jamie,
also, it's very good to try to come up with your own answers and then compare it with your teammates. I actually would recommend to go this way. And if you're stuck somewhere, ask your teammates or ask a mentor. And about how much time, it totally depends on you. If you want to go for 5 questions, you might. It really depends on how hard the questions are. If you just count how many cities there are in the data frame or in your data set, or if you want to know, make a plot out of all the females or cities, and that could also be a question. So you can go completely hard on yourself or not. And if you want to have more support there, just go chat with your teammates and yeah, think about some nice hard questions or less hard questions, but it's totally up to you. But if you stuck in joining your data frame, in doing something with GitHub, if you're not able to load in and you really Googled it and after an hour or so, or after half an hour, you really suck, just ask your teammates and ask somebody in Slack.
Yeah, and so this is like our brief estimation. So how much time will it cost you? Is that the Daniel I know? Alexia, the answer, we have 2 Daniela. So one of them who you know, maybe who you know, and another one not. How many people are participating in this lesson? Shouldn't we assume that some people have dropped out since the beginning? Yes, there is a possibility. That's why we say that we split now for 14 teams, 7 person in each. And in case officially only 2 people dropped out. Just in case if we figure out that some other people dropped as well, you will see it while you will try to contact your teammates. That's why I'm saying, let's assume at least 72 hours after your first contact with the teammates. If there is no response, then I will contact them and we will see whether they participate further or not. I do hope that we have all 98 people, but we will see. Yeah, then, oh yeah, okay, so we got a comment from Danielle. So we have Daniela, and Daniele. So it's Daniela is completely different name. Yeah, I think that's it. For any other questions? And remember that Bootcamp help channel is open for you, so the mentors are there and we are there as well. So questions, we're here to answer.
Yeah.
Anything? Yeah.
Yeah, and if you're don't wait for 3 days to get started. If you want to start now and you miss out on somebody in your project or team, then you can also earlier send them or look for them on Slack. If they don't reply, well, we'll find you another teammate. And otherwise, you have a nice assignment on your own as well, but we'll make sure to get your another teammate.
Yeah. Okay, something incoming. Okay, will you just a second. Okay, so first question, will you guys create the groups on Slack or will we do that? If you're not a part of Slack, if you just invited to Slack as a guest, you're not able to create the groups. So we need to check it because for this bootcamp, not to overflood the Python Slack channel, a lot of people were invited as a guests with the possibility to stay further as a member if you want. We will ask it later. Just right after the bootcamp. So we will check it. We don't know yet. We'll check and announce it. Then can you please provide some instructions how to present on Teams? Good question, but now there is maybe we will change the format for the next presentation, and maybe we'll do it not via team live event, maybe or something. Sorry, maybe it's something different. That's why we'll share definitely as soon as possible. We'll share the guidelines for presentation. But in a nutshell, a short presentation, you have 5 minutes, so a couple of slides, and your action.
Just use your notebook. It's also fine. If you have nice plots there, it's also fine.
Yeah, yeah. Okay, we have something else. Okay, via direct messages, you can add your team member provided, okay, to them one another. Yeah, okay. So there's the tip from Saihin. He say via direct messages, you can add your team members provided by Alona just now in one channel to them one another. Good luck all. And then it would be very helpful if you create communication channels for each group. Okay, so we will work on it. For now, for you, task is to start thinking about the possibilities and to try to contact your team members via DM for now, and we will handle the communication channels on Slack for you. I expect to get results at least tomorrow, because we have some time difference with Canada, who's responsible for PyLadies Slack channel.
Mm-hmm. Maybe give your group a name if you present it, so we can. I think we're on the jury, and then we can kind of tell all the groups that what you done right and what we can do better. And I think everybody can there give feedback, and then in the end we can also make it public to you who won the Capstone project. Let's say we could do something like that.
Yeah, somebody just typed that I was able to create a channel. Is this okay? If you are a member of PyLadies, the chances are you're able to create a channel. If not. So that's the question. Let's not create chaos. I think let's first us handle this, and if there is something that we can do, we'll do it as soon as possible. If it's impossible to do, then we find a way how to do it, how to manage it for you. Okay. So okay, something else. Somebody asked again, are we going to do presentation next Wednesday? Yes, you're going to present your team findings next Wednesday. Which format, we will share it as soon as we figure out which, what to use, Teams or Google or Zoom or whatever we have.
But either way, you're going to share your screen, and your screen sharing can be a Jupyter Notebook, or it can be
a presentation,
PowerPoint
presentation.
Something like that.
Yeah, but to point that not everybody will do presentations. So you have a team, and one of the team members can do a presentation, because maybe there is a way to have two people speaking simultaneously. We will check if it's possible with the current setup, but we'll see.
No, we'll just have one person presenting.
Yes, let's do this. So one team, one person. Let's assume one team, one person. Okay, I think we need to finish for today. Good luck for all. So channels will be handled by us. We'll inform you as soon as possible. And regarding the format for the presentations, 5 minutes per team, one person. And what we are going to use, we'll inform you as well. Demi, last words from you. Just a second, I'll share you. Wait. Yes, so.
No, just really good luck, and try to make your best out of it. And okay, if 1 week is very, very hard maybe for you, and if you cannot get along and you feel like you're a total noob, just try and see what your teammates are doing, and then after try it another time, like another week or so. If you feel like you could not contribute enough, you can send us a private message. We are there also to support you. The mentors are there to support you as well. If you want to have private conversation with us, you can also privately contact us if you don't feel comfortable in your group. Anything you can say to us also on the email, and we'll help you out there. If you don't feel like working in a group, you really want to work alone, you can also let us know that. But then you will not be able to present on your own. But it's also fine if you want to do that. Just let us know.
Yeah, and the last two things. First question, must be present the result and the code used. Present, we ask you to create GitHub repo to check your code later and to give you some tips, what can be improved, what is awesome, to see how you are doing. So for the presentation, we don't want to see your code for the presentation for this 5 minutes. We want to hear your story about the data and your exploration. So this is what the data said. This was awesome things that I mentioned. Do you know that among Nobel Prize winners, like the ratio of women is like 4 or 5%, or some? So it can be anything that you want. Just in case, could we reduce the 72 hours response to lower, because that is already halfway through? We can reduce it in half, but just imagine the situation if we split you in teams, you're contacted, somebody didn't attend the session and read about it in the morning, and then this is their work day, and then in the evening they found it, and we already reassign you to a new team. It can be a little bit messy as well. So yeah, let's say keep like 48 hours. Let's do this. Let's do 48 instead of 72, if it's okay. And I think the last question. Oh, thanks a lot for great lesson. Thank you too for attending, and we are stopping now. Okay, so a lot of things. So good luck once again. We are here on Slack with you to help you. Yeah, so that's it. Bye.